Last night, Donald Trump went through a major breakdown as the situation in his ongoing conflict with Iran started heading south, with reports coming in that our weapon reserves are starting to dwindle. He was clearly losing it overnight, firing off wild messages insisting that our supplies aren't drying up at all. He claimed we could keep using them without end, and that endless warfare is totally possible if that's what we choose. I'll pull up some of those messages to give you a sense of it. On top of that, he shared some odd thoughts about Richard Nixon, saying Nixon failed to dismantle the so-called deep state, which led to his downfall, but Trump himself is taking it apart ahead of time. Then he shifted to ranting about the 2020 vote in a series of unhinged updates that stretched through the hours. What's really happening here? Let me read out one of his key statements for context. He wrote something like, "Our country's weapon reserves at the mid and upper levels are stronger and more plentiful than ever before. Someone told me today that our stock is basically bottomless when it comes to these tools of defense. We could sustain battles indefinitely and come out on top just relying on what we have, which outclasses what most other nations consider their top gear." Hold on a second. Are you really suggesting we drag this out without limits, with supplies that magically never run dry? We all know that's not true. What's the point you're trying to make? This comes right as we're hearing about shifts in defenses, pulling anti-missile setups like THAAD and Patriot batteries from places in Asia, including South Korea, and redirecting them to the region around Iran. At the same time, you're backing out of commitments to supply Taiwan with billions in arms and support. But let's keep going with his words. He added that at the very top tier, our holdings are solid, but not quite at the ideal mark yet. Plenty more advanced equipment is positioned in partner nations abroad. Essentially, he's hinting at stripping resources from spots like Ukraine or Asia to fill the gaps. If you figured he'd pivot to slamming Joe Biden next, since Trump never owns up to issues and just points fingers elsewhere, you'd be spot on. He continued, "That tired old Joe Biden wasted all his energy and our nation's funds handing over massive handouts to that showman Zelensky in Ukraine, hundreds of billions in value. While he doled out the premium stuff without strings, he never thought to restock any of it. Let's stop again. You get that right now. Perhaps the one global figure with real hands-on know-how for countering those Iranian-style drones and rockets is Zelensky himself. His team in Ukraine has built up skills that could actually assist us in this mess. Yet Trump is out here bashing him, labeling him a circus act. Listen, Donald, are you aware, or maybe too clueless to grasp, that the real partnership tying things together is between Iran, Russia, and China? Or do you know and just not care? Because every move you're making reads like a guidebook on how to weaken America from within. If your trade barriers against everyone else didn't break us, and your jabs at Europe or wild ideas about taking over places like Greenland and Canada fell short, then hey, why not kick off an open-ended fight in that part of the world without any clear plan, while picking fights left and right? That's the picture emerging as I go through this. He wrapped up by saying, "Luckily, I overhauled our armed forces during my first stint and kept building on that. America is fully equipped and set to dominate. Appreciate you tuning in. Signed, Donald J. Trump." Can you see how this person has tanked every venture he's led in the past? Does it click why he's among the poorest choices for handling crises, maybe the absolute least suited for the role? Beyond that, he tossed out a few more scattered thoughts. I'm not dwelling on them since I want to stick to the key details for you. But things like claiming US votes are fixed, swiped away, and a joke internationally. We fix it or lose the nation entirely. Or how he takes out rivals before they can strike, unlike Nixon, with some fake images attached. No need to dive deeper into that. But amid all this chaos, reports confirm the US is looking at shifting air shields and other gear from South Korea and other areas to bolster the Middle East, all because stocks are thinning out. Plus, during Marco Rubio's briefing to reporters yesterday, he basically owned up that Israel pulled America into the fray with Iran. When pressed on what made the danger so immediate for striking Iran, Rubio replied, "Well, we figured Israel was set to hit Iran soon, and if that happened, Iran would target us next. So we joined Israel in the strike to head it off, since Israel was going anyway. That's what made it urgent," straight from him. But there were other standout moments in that session I need to point out, especially on the weapons side, where Rubio noted a major challenge for the US is that Iran churns out more than 100 missiles each month, while we only produce about half a dozen to a handful of interceptors monthly. Think about it. He's admitting the hard truth openly. Here's the audio from that part. They're turning out, by certain calculations, over 100 of those projectiles every month. Stack that against the 6 or maybe 7 countermeasures we can assemble in the same time. They crank out 100 monthly, plus thousands of those single-use attack flyers they deploy. And of course, I have to revisit what Marco Rubio said about Israel essentially forcing the US hand in this conflict. It's word for word. A Democratic senator shot back, "What on earth became of putting America first?" Hear Rubio in his own voice. There was definitely a pressing danger. The pressing part was our intel showing that if Iran got hit and we thought an attack was coming, they'd turn right to us. We weren't about to just take the hit before fighting back, since our defense experts figured that if we held off until they struck us after someone else, like Israel, went first, we'd face heavier losses and more fatalities. We acted ahead in a protective move to limit their impact. If we hadn't, there'd be investigations up on the Hill questioning why we saw it coming and didn't step in to save more lives. Then Mike Johnson, the speaker, backed this up too. They had to weigh the risks to our people, our bases, our resources there and farther out. Based on top-notch intel, they concluded that if Israel moved against Iran to neutralize those threats, Iran would hit back at our forces and holdings right away. Our service members are in the line of fire and we have civilians in the area that weighed heavily. Now more facts are surfacing from outlets like CBS about those 6 troops confirmed lost. And sadly, that count might rise, along with the injured. Those 6 were stationed at a dock in Kuwait, hunkered in a temporary setup with trailers, and the alert systems failed to kick in soon enough. Folks in that spot had flagged it as a bad idea, with too many personnel clustered together, making it an easy mark for drone strikes. They'd pushed back on using these trailer-based command spots due to the risks, but leadership under Pete Hegseth brushed it aside. He's more focused on spouting about fighting spirit. This isn't about toppling a government, but the setup has shifted big time, or whatever nonsense he spouted yesterday. The US is pretty much flying solo here with Israel, no real allies stepping up. Over in France, their leader Emmanuel Macron made it clear, we're not deploying our Charles de Gaulle carrier for this, no way. In the UK, during a session in their legislature, Prime Minister Keir Starmer told lawmakers, we won't send our forces into an illegal fight. Here's his take. Putting our service members in situations that endanger them means ensuring it's legal first. That's a leader's responsibility, and past ones followed the same. I'll review the opposition's legal view, but my guidance is firm, and I won't put our troops in unlawful engagements. That's not what they signed up for. They merit better. So, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu appeared on Fox, their go-to network, to push his narrative. He stressed, we're the ones standing against the threats here. We're on the right side. Okay, roll that segment. We're battling the threats. We're the defenders. Then Sean Hannity questioned him. Some claim you pulled Donald Trump into this. How could I pull him? He's the most decisive leader out there. Maybe that's your angle. As our top editor Ron Filipkowski noted, we didn't say pulled. Trump jumped in eagerly. I'm betting Netanyahu wouldn't dispute Rubio, though. Let's hear this. I have to put this to you. Folks are saying Israel's leader drew Donald Trump in. As someone who's known him 3 decades, no one draws Trump anywhere. But what's your view? You're spot on. It's nonsense. Donald Trump leads with strength globally. He acts on what's best for the US and for what's ahead. We're allies in this because I've committed my career to safeguarding our sole Jewish homeland. It's been tough. I've felt war's pain, lost a sibling in combat, faced terrorists myself, got injured rescuing captives from a seized aircraft. At 18, I cradled a dying comrade. I understand war's toll, but sometimes it's essential to shield us from those aiming to wipe us out. Free nations need to get that. Then Netanyahu claimed this isn't perpetual conflict. It's a path to stability we're seeing, a route to calm. Let's run it. I think we can reach it. Key point. When President Trump and I teamed up, we notched 4 major steps toward harmony, all under his guidance with my input. We sealed the Abraham Accords, 4 agreements with Arab states. Now, joining forces against Iran, we can secure even more. So this isn't endless strife. It's an entry to harmony. It's the reverse of the chatter. Next, Democratic Senator Mark Warner, who's essentially the second in command for his party on the intelligence panel, shared this. Roll the audio. Let's make it plain. I've said it prior, repeating now. No direct immediate risk to America from the Iranians. There was a risk to Israel. If we treat a risk to Israel as equal to one against us, we're in new ground. We've watched the aims of this effort shift. I count 4 or 5 times now. And remember, Senator Warner highlighted this from last June, when Trump and his team declared Iran's atomic sites were wiped out, and any denials are false reports. So you claim total destruction of their nuclear setup back then. Now what? We acted because Israel planned to strike Iran, and if Iran countered, our stakes would suffer. Again, isn't America meant to stand as a leading force? Do we just get pushed around? And that's the story? Then I spotted this post from Philip Proudfoot saying, laughing out loud, this caps the American dominance perfectly, tying it to yesterday, and I'll just show a quick bit. Melania speaking at the UN. Did you catch her there? With all this unfolding, the US placed her before the United Nations. Here's a snippet. Good afternoon. The 10,113th session of the Security Council is now in order. Lastly, credit to CNN for compiling this sequence of Trump's mixed signals on the conflict. Here's that montage. Our leader might spark a clash with Iran since he can't bargain at all. We attempted. They were open. Then not. They were open. He could ignite a war. I won't ignite one. I'll end them. This was our final strong option to act. We're less inclined to police globally. An Iran with far-reaching rockets and atomic arms would pose an unbearable risk. She'd pull us into a global war. They're enlisting you for battles in unknown lands. Losses might occur. War brings that. Tragically, more probably will. Then on their favored outlet, Sean Hannity hosted Steve Witkoff, Trump's property associate who's somehow leading talks. Unclear why this guy's at the table. He's far from ideal. Hannity said, picture crafting top-tier golf spots. Iran didn't respect those achievements. Run this. They took pride in it. Pride that they'd dodged checks to reach a point for delivering 11 atomic devices. I'd love to eavesdrop in that space because, Steve, you're a deal maker. You've led thriving ventures, created stunning golf venues. It makes no sense they'd act like the strikes didn't occur and push that, despite Trump's firm stance against their atomic pursuits, they'd proceed. How misguided were they? They're finished now. It was foolish, but they aimed to overpower us. President Trump dispatched me and Jared to gauge if they meant business on a pact meeting his goals, dismantling their rocket efforts, cutting proxy backing that's upsetting the whole area, shrinking their fleet for open seas without threats to close key waterways, and zero enrichment leading to bomb material. No atomic weapons. We tried fair terms. It became obvious by the second session it wouldn't work, but we returned for a third to exhaust options. They hoped for upbeat reports. It wasn't. So strange. Anyway, folks, make sure to subscribe.